GM. Welcome to the Boonafide Experience podcast. I am your host, Kyle, but really, most people, they just call me Boona. This is a Web3 podcast where I interview artists, builders, gamers, and of course, DeFi wizards. The mission here is to highlight trustworthy individuals in the space, share amazing artwork, and build a strong community as we rewrite the history of IP and entertainment forever. Y'all, if you're new here and are returning and haven't done so, do the thing, like and subscribe to this video or audio podcast, whichever platform you're on. Doing so helps you get notified every time I do drop a new episode, which is weekly on Mondays. If you're in the Web3 crowd, you're immediately going to forget that. So do yourself a solid, give yourself a reminder, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, do the thing, do yourself a solid. On top of that, this does help onboard a lot of future community members because one of the most challenging pieces to get people in here and to get people excited is finding an on-ramp with someone they relate to and finding a reason for them to care. And that's exactly what this podcast is about. So not only do you do yourself a favor, but you also do your future community members a solid, which, hint, we need more of them to grow. You know, if we're all going to make it, we need them all here. So go ahead and do that thing for you and your future community members. If you're wanting even more access, I do have an exclusive Patreon channel, which does drop episodes early to Patreon members, as well as you get a custom role in my Discord, which does give you more access to myself and other fellow Patreons. So for those wanting more access, link is in the description below. Also on the membership section on my website, boonafide.com. Now, this one I'm excited for. I had one of the most fruitful conversations, we're going to go with that, with Natasha, or as she famously goes by, Postwook, on Twitter, on Instagram, as her artist alias, I should say. Natasha is the brainchild of a super analytical father, as well as an incredibly artistically talented mother. She gets the best of both worlds. Combined with her sense of humor, she is just a force to be reckoned with. One of my favorite humans since we had this conversation. Shout out to Alex for recommending her to come on the show. Cannot thank you enough. If you do want to know Alex was a previous guest a couple episodes ago that we had on, nerded out a bunch about her PhD journeys and her photography and all this other fun stuff. But great minds think alike. Thank you so much, Alex. Got to give you a shout out for that. With Natasha's story, we go into what her early career choices were. She went into politics. This is also where she figured out when she liked creating collage art on a mobile app on her phone. We go through her journey of creating album art for festivals, for understanding her value, moving to California, doing work for Toyota. I mean, goodness gracious, the list just goes on. One of the coolest things, one of the most important things that I really love about Natasha is that we go into a lot of her emotions, her feelings, her thought processes, her challenges, the struggles that she went through, and the lessons learned to get there. I mean, we talk through important lessons like, you know, other people's successes aren't her failures. And like, that was one of my most favorite parts of that conversation. We go into the PFP community, why decentralized NFTs are important, some of the Gen Zers and why they hate politics. We go into so many different things. It's really, really hard to condense it all into this intro. Point is, you're not going to be bored at all with this. So with that being said, let's get started with the show. GM, Natasha, how are you?
I am doing well. I'm awake. I'm not sick anymore. I feel incredible.
Wow. That is, that's a good feeling. I actually, unfortunately, had COVID right after I went to South by this past year, and I'm a bitch when it comes to pain and being sick, and I was out for like a week and a half. It was like one of the worst experiences ever.
Yeah, I don't think this was COVID because it felt like a sinus infection, which was actually like I was grateful to have a sinus infection.
Mild.
Yeah, mild,
Right, yeah.
Totally fine. But I was just glad because I am like, okay, well, hopefully I won't get sick in New York. That's kind of my go-to now. I'm like, oh, well, it'll be fine. Like, hopefully, we'll see.
I mean, because we were chatting offline, like last year we both didn't go to NFT NYC because we didn't really know, we weren't really that plugged in. And it's like, we both talked about like how important this actually is. And it's like, whatever it takes to like shield myself, I'm fine getting sick afterwards, but before, like, but during, no way am I going to take like any sort of risk.
It's hard at these events though, because I feel like they're kind of super spreader events, like unfortunately. But like I think that hopefully now more so than before, it's just like calming down. Like that's kind of my hope. I know at Art Basel, I was so good. I was like, I wore a mask everywhere I went. And then I talked to one person outside and I got sick on the last day. And I got sick.
Lovely.
Yep.
Lovely. Yep.
So you can do everything right and still get it all wrong. So whatever.
All it takes is once, right?
All it takes is one, you know. It's okay. Yeah, but whatever. We ball. We work it out. Yeah.
We'll make it. Like we keep it moving, you know. Well, this has been a treat. Like we've gotten to like chat, I think for like almost an hour beforehand. Which typically, you know, like I love it when that happens, because that means the podcast is typically gonna go really well. Not that other ones don't, but you know, when you vibe, you vibe. And I was told you earlier, I was put onto you from Alex Mack, who I just sat down with, had a phenomenal interview with. Said, you got to check this woman out. And I'm like, okay. And I saw your art and I'm like, okay, I just interviewed Aaron McGeehan, you know, like the first collage artist that I had on. And I'm like, this is fucking cool. Like, this is so neat. And I was just like, okay, cool. Like DM sent like immediately. So, it is a treat to have you on. And so like, give a quick, you know, like how, for the people who don't know you, you know, give a quick little intro.
Hi, I'm Natasha. My artist name is Postwook. I am a collage artist. I really like color and texture and mountains and space. And I make mostly like landscape surrealism art that like is supposed to kind of like transport you to a different world. That's like kind of the whole point. But that's my art. I have a cat named Ted. He's great. He's my best friend. And I'm left-handed. Those are my 3 fun facts.
I make art. Here's Ted, and I'm left-handed. What a great icebreaker. I love it.
I scuba dive too. Yeah. That's me.
Hey, you know, I'm not much of a. I'm a mountain guy myself. Scuba diving I'd done once, you know, so it was fun. I did it I did it once in Cozumel, and then that was it, you know. But I'm a mountain guy. Like I like mountains have always I lived in Colorado for a couple of years. Mountains have always been my vibe. So we like the mountains.
We like mountains.
How long you been creating for? Like how long you been doing this? Like give me like a little kind of like a start wherever you want to start.
Okay. I was born.
Yeah.
No, I was born on March 25th. No, I'm joking. So, I was always a very creative child. My mom is a very creative person, and my dad is a very analytical person. I'm very much 50-50 both of them. I'm like learning that as I get older. Like I very much am both of my parents, which I think drives them crazy because like they see themselves in me and they're like, oh my God. And then they see the parts of their partner that they're like, oh my God. It's great. It's great. But because of that, I have really an analytical brain and like an artistic brain. And I think like my mom was super creative. And from a young age, like she really like encouraged me to be creative. You know, it's like always like some craft to do. She always had something, you know, it was just like always fun. Like there was always stuff. And so I like really kind of like explored that part of my head. And I just got into like things that I was happy to do, you know, like I did theater camp and then I later like worked there in high school and like I got to make like sets and like costumes for theater. And that was like really fun for me. And I just like, I got to just like do all these sorts of things that I like really am grateful I had the opportunity to do. And I also, you know, my dad he works at NASA, he writes code for satellites, has a very analytical way of thinking. I also have that side of my brain, which is just like very like, you know, I can write really well, I'm good at research, you know, I can like think quickly, read fast, and like that kind of stuff is helpful. Right. And I always kind of felt like I didn't fit in anywhere because I had like, I didn't fit in with the artsy kids, but I also didn't fit in with the nerds. I like just kind of got along with everyone and I was always really social. And it was just kind of like, it was kind of interesting because I never really felt like I found the thing. And then 2008 hit and I got kind of into politics, really got into politics in like 2012. And I actually went to school in DC for political science. And I felt like I like chose the side. I was like, I'm choosing the analytical side. And it's kind of funny because I did, I started school doing like a dual degree in like history and political science. And then, that ended up just being political science, which was fine. I worked like on a campaign like while I was in college and like worked on the Hill and like did all this like crazy stuff and like really like wanted to work in politics.
Yeah.
Like that's what I wanted to do. And I was super passionate about it. But once I got like, because when I was in school, even when I was working and in school, I still had like a sorority and I had like friends in college and like college like things to do. But like when I really was just working and I like wasn't living near home anymore, I was like working on a political campaign and like I didn't have any creative outlet. I didn't have the ability to be creative. I didn't have the time and I didn't have the resources. So the most creative thing I could do was like plate my lunch. And I like had a snapping point where I was like, I need to do something more than just like put wasabi peas in a salad. Like this is not entertaining anymore. So literally, I used to do that. I was like, I am so fancy. I have wasabi peas in my salad, and they're good. I mean, try it if you haven't. But
well, honestly, for the podcast,
yeah, that's a little tip. But I think that like what really happened was like I hit like a point that I like to call it like the glow stick moment, where like I just kind of snapped and everything kind of like broke open in the best way. And I knew how to make collage art because I made it when I was younger. But I didn't have like a good computer. I didn't have any space for like magazines. So I was like, can I get this on my phone? So I found an app that does not exist anymore. Or it does, but it's like different. It's like they completely, they butchered it. It's not the same app. And I started making collage art on my phone. That's how I got started. And like, it was easy. And I didn't have to like, have a ton of magazines or have a crazy computer. And like, I could just do it from wherever. I was working on a political campaign. I was working like 10 to 15 hour days. It was crazy. I didn't have time. So it's like, I would literally go in the bathroom and like make something really fast, and it's like, that felt good. And then it's like the little bit of free time I did have, I actually like found the ability to create, and it felt like scissors on wrapping paper, right? Like it was just like, it hit. Yeah. It was perfect. And I knew in that moment, I was like, I need to do this. And it was funny because the candidate I was working for, her mom was an artist. And I remember thinking, there was like this just small moment in my head that was like, you're supposed to be an artist. And I just didn't listen. I was like, no, I'm too smart. I'm too smart for that. So whatever that means, there's a lot of really smart artists. So really what I realized quickly was, being an artist is a lot of business. So I got to tickle both sides really fast, and I was really happy. So what happened was I just started like posting my art on the internet. I had like friends for like the music festival community, and I just started putting it on Facebook and putting it on Instagram, and people started sharing it, and then their friends started sharing it. And it just kind of, then I got people asking, can you make an album cover for me? And I was like, yeah. And I just did it for like $30, because I didn't know what I was doing. I made a $30 album cover. And whatever. And it just kind of snowballed. It was like a snowball running down a hill. And, I think, I know you're going to ask about NFTs, but I want to continue the arc here.
Well, no. This is actually, we will inevitably talk about that. But like, this is actually what I'm more interested. Like, I love learning like prior to.
Okay.
So like,
yeah, cool.
Like for real. That's the whole, I love it.
Well, okay. So let's get there. So basically I was like, okay, how do I combine these things that I like to do? Because I was like involved in nightlife and stuff in college. I was in the music industry type thing. I wanted to work in the music industry, which is so funny now. And I was like, okay, after this job, and I'm going to move to LA, and I'm going to get some experience in the music industry, and then I'm going to go work as a paralegal, and I'm going to go to law school. And I'm going to be an entertainment lawyer, because that is a way for me to combine the music industry with, policy. And I was like, that's a compromise that I can make. And then I like got here and started working at a music like management company, which was fun, for a band. And that was cool. It was very different from what I had done before. But like what I realized in that process was just like, I don't want to be the music manager. I want to be the artist. And like, and it was music. Like I was making like tour posters and like organizing like,
Yeah.
marketing at like, record stores for, these bands. It's just like, it wasn't even like anything crazy. I was just,
Yeah.
it wasn't anything like what I wanted to do, but I was just like, I want to be the artist. I don't want to be the like team. So then I like kind of like, scrubbed away the idea of going to law school because art really took off.
Sure.
Then Toyota came knocking. And that was cool. So I did a project for
Toyota. Okay.
Yeah. That was really cool. So I got like a few.
Yeah.
That was like, I kind of got like a big break like all at once. So it's like, I was like making art and it was like going well. I was like on Instagram. It was like when Instagram was actually like, usable and not completely horrible. Yeah. Like, you could actually like, grow a following from hashtags and reels didn't exist. And it was kind of nice. And like, yeah, I had like, it was like the summer of 2019. Toyota came knocking. And then I ended up doing this pretty large partnership with like a local, not local, but like regional, like beer company. And then I did something for a like NA like beverage company in France, all in the same. That was all like fall of 2019.
Wow.
And it was just like, okay,
wow.
Like I don't need to work a day job anymore. Like it was like very clear. Like it was like this moment of like, I like don't want to do this because I was working at a hotel at the time and doing like event management, which like I loved. I ran fundraisers, in for doing like in the political world. So it's like I knew how to throw a party, and I was like, I like throwing parties, and they weren't really parties; they were like corporate breakfasts, but like whatever, they were fun, and I didn't mind. I learned so much from that job that like now it's like I have some friends that are doing a gallery and they're just like, we don't know how to do catering. And I'm like, okay, let me help. Like I could do that. So it's like good life experience. But like I was working this job at this hotel and I loved it. I loved my coworkers. I loved the job. It was easy. I could like I literally could make art like while I was there. Like they didn't care. And well, they did care, but like they didn't say anything, and I would like show up and like, I was like, it was the first time I was really popping. I would like show up in like Balenciaga and they're just like, you're not buying that on this salary. I'm like, no, I'm not, and like, it was just like this weird feeling of like, I don't want to be here anymore. It like hit a point where I was like, I like this, but like people wanted to like take calls at like 2 p.m. and I like couldn't do that, and it was just like, I wanted to do both because at that time I was very much of the opinion like, oh, well, like, is it a problem if I like don't have a job in the like workforce and contribute to society? And I like really struggled with that. I was like, am I like not an upstanding member of society if I don't like go to work every day? And then I realized like, no, because I'm contributing to society in a different way that like not everyone can or wants to do. And like, this is my calling and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it was terrifying. But what ended up happening was a girl that I worked with. This is so funny. I was ready to go. I was like, okay, like I don't need this job. I'm happy to leave, whatever. And I was just kind of like, I'll just stick it out a little bit, like top of 2020 rolls around. I get a Club Med comes knocking. They're like, we want to send you to Turks and Caicos. And I was like, okay. And that was cool.
Fine.
Yeah, I was like, sounds good. And what happened basically was like, they came knocking. This girl in the office excluded me from the Secret Santa. This is so petty. She was like, you don't work with us. I was the only one in the office that didn't go to the Secret Santa. And I put in a 2-week notice. I was like, I don't fucking care about this job. I was like the moment of like throwing all the papers. I was like, I just don't care anymore. And I quit. And I'm so glad I did, because then I went to Turks and Caicos. I got COVID for the first time. I like learned how to like be like a freelancer a little bit. And then the pandemic hit and like everything shut down. And she was the first person to get let go from that job. And I will never thank her more for that because she pushed me in the right direction. And I still don't like her, but I'm grateful for her, And the pandemic was interesting because things like slowed down, and I got really scared because I like hadn't been freelance for that long, you know, and like things ended up working out and it was fine. I got really into e-commerce. I sold so many prints during the pandemic. All of those unemployment checks went straight to me, which was nice for me because people were at home and they were like looking at their walls for the first time. And they're like, ew, there's nothing here. And they're like, oh my God, I need serotonin. I'm going to buy something. And then they did. And they bought my art. And I was happy. That was cool. And then, you know, the end of 2020, I ended up like breaking up with my like longtime boyfriend. And he was like really influential in like the beginning for me. Like he was a DJ and he like worked in music and really like helped me with like a lot of like the marketing stuff. He ended up doing marketing for like this music company. And like he was like really helpful for like, you should do this and you should try that. And we would just brainstorm all the time. So we were both working from home and we would just brainstorm. And he was really helpful. We're still friends. It's great. But it was like a really weird time in my life, like the end of 2020. Because I realized I was like, okay,
I can imagine.
I want to live my life a little differently, you know? And like, I moved into a loft because I wanted no walls and I wanted somewhere no one else could live except for me. You know, I was like so excited to like just be on my own. And I remember the beginning of 2021, I was still like, e-commerce was like still kind of popping, but not as much. I totally forgot. Hold on. I need to backtrack a little bit. So it's like, the beginning of 2020 or the beginning of the end of 2020, right? It's like Black Friday is about to happen. Yeah. I just had like a crazy e-commerce year. I get a call from a business partner. His name is Mike. And he says, do you know what NFTs are? And I was like, no. And he was like, well, they're like digital assets you can sell on the internet. And I was like, okay. And we had a conversation. I was like, I don't know, like maybe. And then, you know, all that stuff happens at the end of 2020. I like moved to this apartment. And then there's someone else with me up. It's like February of 2021. And they're like, do you know what NFTs are? And I was like, yeah, but like, I don't know. And they were like, you should like mint your artwork. It'd be cool. Just put it on OpenSea and see what happens. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Then I had a friend have a Nifty Gateway drop. And I was like, the fuck did that just happen? And I texted him and I was like, what did you just do?
Yep.
And he was like, brother. I was like, yo, it was literally a Monday night. I'll never forget this. It's Monday, March 1st, 2021. I'm sitting on my couch eating Cheerios, watching the OC, and I pull up my computer, put the Cheerios aside, turn off the TV, and I opened up OpenSea. And I was like, I need to actually make a plan here. I didn't, but I thought about it. And I got really into Clubhouse at that time and started just listening to people talk. And I will be honest, a lot of these people did not know what the fuck they were talking about, but they were talking. And that's all they needed to do was just talk. And a lot of them said that. A lot of them were like, we don't know what we're doing, but we're figuring it out. We're figuring it out very publicly, which is fine.
Yeah.
And I think that
it's actually really good to learn in public like that. You know what I mean? Like it's actually super good to learn in public. And I think more people like need to get comfortable with that idea. Like I'm gonna interrupt you just real quick because like the problem with like even in Web3 Twitter and crypto Twitter, it's like this shameful event to like be wrong in public, and it's like no, like it's like that's how we learn. We are a bunch of people on the internet interacting with a bunch of other people on the internet, and if we're like most of our IRL friends don't give two shits about this, right? Like. It's so where are you going to learn but from the people that you associate with the entire time? Like, and I just think that like that culture needs to actually change. And that's part of what made me actually fall in love with this is that like they said things like that. They were super genuine and they were super down to earth. They're like, look, like I know a little bit here. This is kind of my angle of where I'm coming from, but like, I'm just kind of like vibing, you know, like, and like, I don't like, I like this. I want to see more of it, but I don't really know like all the technical details behind it. And I just wanted to interrupt and share that because it was like that was one of the first things where I'm like, home authenticity on the internet, home. That was like these are the people. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about, but like I need to be around these people because these are the people. Because I told you earlier, I came from the Twitch community where it's just like everyone put on a mask and like they had to be this certain person to compete for this really narrow slice of the pie. Now that slice of pie was really fruitful. but like everyone's competing for the same thing. Like there's just not, you know what I mean?
It's
And
not
so
like that here.
it's not like that here. This is literally an open canvas. Like create whatever the fuck you want to create. Like, and you're gonna find a market for your own shit. Like, and that's, I'm like, oh my god. Like my head just started spinning. Anyway, keep going. March 1st, you thought about a plan, you didn't do the plan. You know,
You just basically said all the things. It was just like people learned in public on Clubhouse, right?
Clubhouse. Yep.
And it was just like, it was fun, but I didn't know what I needed to know. I didn't know myself well enough. I was comparing myself to other people. I was jealous. Sure. I wasn't okay with other people's successes. These are things I'm comfortable saying now because I don't feel that way anymore, right? Like I had to learn how to do those things, right? So it's like from like March to about, I want to say like May-ish, I like was in here, but I was really struggling with like, the learning curve kind of hit me in the face because I think that like I came from Instagram where it was just like I was treated like royalty because I had a ton of followers. People just opened doors for me. It just didn't matter. It was just like, oh, you want this? Okay, sure. You know, and it's just like I've worked for all these people and like, you know, even a little bit on Clubhouse, it's like I would get like, you know, people would put me in rooms and like, you know, put me on stage quickly and stuff in some spots, but like it was less and I was just kind of like used to that. And then I learned very quickly that like that doesn't matter. And it was really hard for me to realize that. Like I was like, why is Nifty Gateway not contacting me again? Or not contacting me. Like, who don't they know? And it's just like it doesn't matter. That's not important to them, you know?
Yeah.
So really what happened was like I had to unlearn a lot, you know, and I went through a period where I unlearned a lot. I had to unlearn, you know, low self-esteem. I had to unlearn jealousy. I had to unlearn comparing myself to other people. I had to learn gratitude for other people. I had to really learn that other people's successes are not my failures. I had to learn that, like, you know, we're not all competing for the same piece of pie, right? And I came back in like July-ish, August. I started fucking around. I was like, Twitter Spaces are cool. This feels kind of like Clubhouse. Okay, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even remember when Twitter Spaces started up because I kind of like had taken a break. But it was interesting. And then really what happened was like I met people that were devs, like actual devs. And they started saying
devs that did something?
The devs did something. They started saying things like ERC 721. They started saying things like ERC 1155. And I was like, what does that mean? You know, like, what does it actually mean to like sign something with my wallet? Like, what is a public open access ledger actually? Like, what is this? How do I read something on Etherscan? Like, what is metadata? How do I look at it? What is Arweave? What is IPFS? Like, you know, and I started like figuring that stuff out. Like, what are these things? And that really is when it clicked. Because I think like in the beginning, it was a lot of just like, oh, money, blah, you know, and it's just like I saw all these like nominally famous like internet celebrities just like make a ton of money. Like it's like that one girl from like MySpace, like the creepy girl, she made like $160,000 on foundation. And it's just like I was sitting here thinking like, why am I not doing that? Instead of thinking like she waited 10 years for that moment. You know, like the perspective was really wonky. And I think there were a lot of people in the space, especially in the beginning, who were just like, I have a blue check and I just cashed the fuck out and bounced. But like the people who stayed, especially through like April and May of 2021, when things really crashed, like those people truly are the people who I think like got it for the right reasons. And a lot of the people that I saw before weren't in it anymore, and they're not here. They're not here now. I didn't mint my first. I have an agent who's incredible, and they minted my first like pieces in like July of 2021. I didn't mint anything myself until I want to say it was like early October. I like really waited. I really waited.
Yeah.
I had to unlearn a lot. And then I got asked to do a like charity drop for Open Earth, and they were like, we could put you on super rare, and I was like, let's fucking go. And that was cool because I got to then, one, donate money to charity through my artwork, which felt really awesome. to be on fucking
Yep.
super rare. So I minted my Genesis like right around the holidays, like end of year holidays. Well, I guess it really wasn't the end of year holidays because Hanukkah was in early December, but it was right around Christmas. Right. And, whatever. And that was cool. And then things like really took off from there, which was cool. That's really like when it kind of started. So it was like a whole vibe. Yeah.
It really is a whole vibe. And one thing I really want to highlight, I think like people are going to learn a lot from this, because I got, it's the part where I got goosebumps in your chat here, where it's just like when you were talking about you had to unlearn that like other people's successes were not your failure, like that. that I just wanted to repeat that one more time, because it's there again. We have been so conditioned in this in the older, like in the version of the internet that, we're, I guess you could still say we're participating in, because we're still on Twitter, we're still on Instagram, we're still, we're still halfway participating and still halfway not. Like that was what really hit me, is that like these systems, I'm going to rewind a little bit. I started building my conviction by following people. Like my journey was just slightly different in the way I came up, but like we kind of like entered in around the same time. We kind of got curious around the same time, early March. But I started going back and looking at like, okay, who were the people that like built the internet back in like 99 and 2000, 2001? Who were those people? Right. Like that was, I'm like, what are these people saying about this? Cause I was still very like unclear and still very like, what the fuck is this? And they're, when they were talking about, this is like what the Web3 was like, actually what they intended to do with the first version of the web, but they just didn't have the tools to do so.
Yeah.
Right. This, like, it was actually the ethos of like the internet when it was first born. And then somewhere down the road, we went through all these centralization trade-offs to make our lives easier. And like a lot of them make my life easier, like right now, like, and I'm not going to like sit here and say I'm not a super decentralization maxi, because like there are some centralized things that like I really enjoy. There's a very big benefit to centralized companies. But one thing that like I spent so much time doing is I was actually conditioning myself to like not be myself on Twitch, and not be myself to like try to get this big piece of the pie. Like, so when I came here, like, and now granted, I didn't have to do a whole lot of unlearning, but there was an unlearning process.
Yeah.
Of like, oh my God, like, because again, like I think I told you earlier, it's like I didn't have the bags to support artists the way I wanted to. I didn't realize, number one, that I wanted to collect digital art until I figured out that you could tokenize digital art. And I'm like, this is cool. Like, this is neat. I didn't know I liked art until this happened. I didn't realize that like I enjoyed digital art partially because I live in an apartment and I don't have wall space to hang a lot of physical art. So the digital art actually was more attractive to me, because like I could store all of it on my computer. Like I could, it lived not in my apartment. But that was like my introduction to it. And the fact that like I couldn't support artists the way I wanted to, so I was already coping from that. I'm like, I just want to have all the bags so I can buy all the art. Like, I'm just super selfish. Like, I just want all of it, because it was like striking gold. Or, it's like mining. It's like picking at, like, you finally find gold and you're like, holy shit. And I told you I wasn't a finance guy, and so I didn't feel like I could actually provide any value. And so even when I was interviewing artists like last year, like, me uplifting them, watching them get more sales, and like not as a result of being on here, but watching them continue to go do great things. And I'm like, I don't even have this podcast monetized. Like, it was like it was like they have Patreon, but like it's barely monetized, not even anything close into comparison. So I actually had to unlearn a lot of that myself. And I'm like, hold on, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is my part to contribute. And when I actually this is just my own personal journey here. But I flipped the script from like, this is the only way I contribute, to like, I'm actually documenting people who were the pioneers of really early technology that changed the course of like culture for the entire world. And like, once that happened, I'm like, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, I'm going to find a way to get my bag one way or the other, but like, yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Too. Right. Because like it's different for everyone. And I think what you said, just like you watched all these people do this stuff. It's just like, that's a part of it too, though, and I think that's part of it. It's like I watched people like Nest Graphics, like, take the fuck off And it was
Yeah.
just like, yeah, because he's been in Bitcoin since like 2010 and his art's incredible. So it's just like, yeah, like, and it was like the perfect time. It was just like early 2021. Everyone wanted digital art, like 3D animated. That's exactly what he makes. It was like awesome to watch, you know? And it's just like, it just is what it is though. And the unlearning, I like to mention that because I think a lot of people like they don't realize they're unlearning, like they're not aware of the fact that they're unlearning. And I think especially like there are trade-offs to centralization. I'm glad you said that. I don't think that this world is going to exist like it's not mutually exclusive with the world
It's
of
not.
you know, just like centralized things. Like even people on Instagram will hit me up. Aw. Even people on Instagram will hit me up and they're like, oh, like, do you have any articles I can read about this? Do you have any like, you know, sources? And I'm like, yeah, me. Like, what do you mean? You know, it's just like, you know, I'll send them the NFT Bible. I'll send them a few blogs, you know, but it's just like all these people are just regurgitating the same information that we're sharing, but in a way that is helpful because it's like those people are kind of sharing these things that like other people need to hear in this way. But like a centralized model, it is helpful for certain things. And I just think these things they're not going to live mutually exclusive of each other. You know, like they're going to be able to exist in tandem. I just think the difference is like, you know, a lot of haters, whether they are covert or overt about it, like to say to people who have large Instagram followings, even still, what are you going to do if Instagram gets deleted tomorrow? And you're not fucking slick, y'all. We all know what you're saying. It's, I hate you because you're better than me. Or I hate you because I think you're better than me. I'm not better than anyone, you know, but it's just like they put this weird thing and it's like this passive aggressive language of like, what are you going to do if your success runs away? Yeah, on a centralized system, I'm a little screwed. It's just what it is, you know? I hope those people can take that comment and spin it and be like, decentralization is awesome because regardless of if OpenSea goes down, Postwook's contract exists independently of OpenSea. Postwook's wallet exists independently of OpenSea, you know? And it's like, to me, that's really cool. So, like, I hope that the conversation around decentralization is more so targeted to people and especially artists of like, your artwork just doesn't go away if something goes wrong, you know? Like, it's still there. And I think that that's really cool. To me, like, the bare minimum, that's awesome. And I hope that can convince people.
It's huge.
Imagine if all of your photos, think about it like from even just like a family perspective, all your family photos live on chain. They're not listed. You're not selling them, but they're on a smart contract that you've been able to mint that's not listed. We're not selling anything. But like, yo, if like my dad's a huge history buff. If he 50 years ago could mint something on chain and have a digitized version of all of our family photos, that would be so cool. Because then they're not going anywhere.
That would be.
You know what I mean? That's what this is cool for. The decentralized internet isn't just about making money, and we're not talking about that. You know, but it's like, it's just it's gonna be interesting for everyone.
Yeah,
honestly,
it is, and and that's because that's when I first came in here. I'm just like, okay, I didn't vibe with the Bitcoin maxi argument. I'm like, okay, y'all, the rabbit hole that y'all go down, I don't actually think that's possible. You know what I mean? Like the. But like, you know, the ETH rabbit holes and the NFT rabbit holes and the, you know, that to me was a rabbit hole that like, okay, this could actually happen. You know, what if this did happen? It's pretty practical, you know, it's like, and so that was like my big, I'm like, okay, I can't be a maximist. There's got to be some sort of like trade-off. There's got to be some sort of balance. And there was actually an article I read today about, you know, copyrights and NFTs. And I think that's a conversation that needs to be had about like what a copyright actually is, what rights an NFT actually is. Yep. did I strike a chord? Did I strike a chord there?
Oh yeah, you did. Because I just want to say very publicly that buying someone's NFT is not a licensing agreement. There is no exchange of goods and services being done when you mint someone's NFT unless they tell you there is their terms of service. And as far as I'm concerned, my one-of-ones and my editions do not have a TOS attached to them. And you are not able, like, I will reach out to you to make a print out of something. Like, a piece of art is not a licensing agreement. You do not own that piece of art, like, rights. You don't own the copyright just because you own the NFT. You own the NFT.
Yeah.
Like, that's the difference. I'm currently working on a commission for a very dear friend where I'm making a canvas for him, but it's also for him. There's an implied, like, just like expectation there. We had a meeting of the minds. We came to an agreement. We came to an implied agreement. We don't need a contract for that reason. That, like, this is his piece of art. He can do whatever he wants with it. He's getting a print of it. It's whatever. It's fine. That's the whole point. Yep. But, like, if you mint someone's art and then you go try to use it as like a commercial or like put it on like a billboard and you bought it for 0.25, like, excuse me, that's Web 2.
Right.
I don't think that that's happening now. It's not.
Yep.
But it's going to be interesting the first time it does, because I think that conversation is going to be very retroactive. We're trying to have proactive conversations about it, which are basically like, you do not own the copyright to a piece unless they tell you you do. Unless it's open source, you don't own the copyright. PFP is incredible. Right. Do it. Open source all of it. CCO, do the whole thing. Art?
Yeah.
Why do you need that? Why do you need it to be open source?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, to me, that's sus. If a collector was like, I need this to be open source, I'd be like, why? Like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want from my art? You know, like,
sure.
It's just weird. So, yeah, I think that conversation is going to be retroactive, unfortunately. We're trying to do it proactively. I have a friend who's a trademark lawyer, and he keeps trying to say things, and people just don't listen. They don't care. You know, like, they're just mostly concerned about, like, not getting DMCA'd by, like, Lamborghini, you know, which has happened, which is kind of funny to me. But, dude, like,
it doesn't.
They said super rare, like, a whole bunch of DMCA's. It was hilarious.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit that I don't clearly know.
Oh, that was funny. That was like crypto art. Like, I use that word pretty intentionally, like crypto art over like NFT. It was a whole bunch of like crypto art drama because people were like getting DMCA because of like Lamborghini, and they were like, how would you confuse this with a car? It's obviously a piece of art. You know, it was interesting.
Yeah. That's, and it's funny watching like traditional companies trying to grasp or like and try to like grapple with like what's happening here, and like it's like you don't understand that like DMCA doesn't really like, it's kind of just like irrelevant, you know, when it comes to like and now in Twitch though, like going back to that in Twitch and current content, it is a big fucking deal. Like, do you remember when that happened? Like, I was in the middle of it. I was, you know, when when you can't because like part of like streaming and content creation is like playing music in your, you know, in your stream, and it's like now you can't do it. And people were like literally getting DMCA notice, like, and having all their content taken down with like, and it was all the content. Like, they had to go through all their VODs. They had to go through gigabytes and terabytes of data and like try to find the one thing. And if they miss something, too bad, you know, then their shit just got canned. Like, it was bad, and it still is very bad.
I think the music industry has been exploited for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I think that having experience in the music industry, I think a lot of people are traumatized and then project that trauma onto someone else, and then it just keeps cycling. But like, I think that they found a way around that, I think, right? Like, where now you can play music if you like get approval or something.
Well, there's tools. There's a lot of tools where you can actually play music on your stream, but it doesn't actually record to the VOD. Like, so you can actually have it to where like, so it's a way around it where it's like, it's not going to live on the internet forever. Now, if someone clips it and then they share it on Twitter, then that's a different story.
Yeah.
But you know, there's ways you can like make it to where the person, like the stream will hear the audio, but it won't, or the music, but it won't actually get recorded to the actual stream. So there's like ways around it, and there's you know copyright free music, and that was like a whole big boom, and yada yada yada. But
same stuff.
That is that same shit. Yeah, I mean, that it's a conversation that needs to happen. And I used to work at LegalZoom. You know, this is like I did. You know, I'm like not an expert, but familiar with like trademarks, copyrights, like how some of that stuff works, and like you know what traditional business owners went through. And when I first came into the space, I'm like, how does that even work? Like, how does this even work? You know, like there's an article in The Verge that I'm going to send you after this that I think you need to read. I haven't fully finished reading it, but there's like all these different scenarios of like, okay, this is what a copyright is, this is what it isn't, and here's some scenarios in which we can play out, and it shows like the pros and cons for each of them, and it's like it's super fascinating. And I think that it's hard to have that conversation, like you were saying, even just generally in public, because people are just concerned about like Goblin Town pumping or like Monkey Go Up or like, you know, like it's not like, it's hard to have that conversation on Twitter right now when there's all this noise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, all the bear market coping.
I enjoyed it a little bit.
I
do too.
I do. Yeah. Honestly though, like a lot of artists are really good at making art, and they're not really good at having conversations about logistics and technicalities and copyright and business stuff. And unfortunately, I think a lot of them just don't care because it just doesn't affect them, you know?
Until it does.
But it hasn't yet, and they don't care. And I think that like a lot of degens, let me put it that way, are very like CCO or bust, like only wimps will issue DMCAs and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, assets are important. I think that people use DMCAs as like a big stick and they kind of like punch people with it, which I kind of don't like. I think that it should be kind of like more determined by like the actual like use case of each individual thing.
It's too wide of a net. It's too wide of a net. Like there's too much in there. Yeah.
Like I think that, you know, I personally don't use things like Mickey Mouse in my art. But like if I did and it conveyed a different message than like Mickey Mouse, you know, Disney still might come after me and say, you're using my likeness. Okay. But also like, is it? Because like under fair use, technically, collage artists have to know so much about copyright because you use a lot of stock photos. Because it was so funny. When I first started meeting like photographers, I was like, these people are going to eat me alive because I use stock photos. I have so many homies that are like, we should do a collab. And I'm like, oh my God, this fear is like so irrelevant. Like all these people are happy, which is so nice. But yeah, with stock photos, you have to be like really careful because it's just like, even if you use a stock photo, if it can be recognized, you know, it's like you could run into some issues. For the most part with photos, it's really hard to tell that like I took that photo, you know, especially in these like really like, you know, that Brooklyn Bridge shot where it's like, how are you going to say you took that photo? You know, it's like for the most part, you can't really, but like, you know, with people and like with likeness, it's like you really have to know your stuff. But I think that like the conversation with like CCO and open source and everything with like NFTs, a lot of artists just don't want to think about it. But like there is a reason that like celebrities get everything copyright or everything trademarked. Like it's not because they want to be dicks. It's because they need to protect their likeness. And I think that every artist, especially if you like want to keep your artist name for a long time, get that shit trademarked. Get it trademarked.
Yeah.
Like I have Postwook trademarked. I have it trademarked in 2 different classes. Like if anyone, Shein, any of these little like shitty drop shipping sites want to try to like make art prints out of my stuff, I have an international copyright on Postwook art. On Postwook art prints.
Love it.
Like it's not just a DMCA. Like I'm issuing like a full trademark violation on your ass. And it's just like it's not because like I want to be a dick. It's because like I worked really hard for this and these like big companies like can't do this, you know? So all that to say, I think that there's a point to this stuff. I think that it could be used better. I think that hitting people over the head with DMCAs, like I got DMCA'd by Drake's lawyer once because I literally I got DMCA'd by Drake's lawyer because it's so funny. I got sent like a Dropbox of his most recent album now, but I got it sent like a year before it came out. And one of the songs was on it, and I played it in a video, and it didn't even get DMCA'd until it came out like a year later. And I just deleted the tweet. It was like super easy, right? But like I was like, yo, like how do they find this? That's crazy. But they find everything, and they lock your account until you figure it out. It's crazy. They have a lot of power.
Yeah,
Twitter will keep a lot of centralized platforms, man.
It's there's a trade-off, man. And you even look at the Twitter centralized platform, we're on DMCA, but you also look at like if you even move it towards crypto, like what just happened in Canada when all the truckers went on strike and the Canadian bank just like shut down people's bank accounts that like supported that cause, and it's like, whoa, that's not okay. You know, like that is clearly not okay. And I remember 6529 wrote a thread on it, is about like your right to freedom is like your right to transact is like a right to freedom. Guys, think about like if you like want to try to express yourself, you have to do that by transacting something. Like you have to buy something to express yourself. You have to buy art to express yourself. You buy microphones to express yourself. You like the right to transact is a fundamental human right. And like that was like taken away in an instance. And I didn't think about it until he said that. And I was like, you know what? You kind of have a point. Like everything involves a transaction of some sort, like to express like my freedom of speech. You know what I mean? Like I have to have a phone to tweet on Twitter. I buy a computer. Now I could go walk out and shout something. That's something different. But you know, I like that there's every device that we have is a transaction. And everything we buy is a transaction, how we express ourselves. So I don't know. It's super interesting. Like when you look at it like that, like these people just hit a button and like froze people's bank accounts. Like that is fucking scary.
And I think I have a lot of thoughts. They all just hit my head at once. So first, I think that I have a degree in political science, and I feel compelled to say this. The state, right, the government, if you will, is supposed to have an expectation of taking care of the citizens who pay into the system, right, with like taxes and you know, you pay taxes, you get back roads, you get back school, you pay property tax, you get an HOA, you get like a public school system, you get these things, you get like municipal things, you get a library. I think the issue is like on the federal level, we don't really see the same things. Yesterday was the primary election in California. So my boyfriend and I went to our polling location. It was at the library, beautiful library. Oh my God. You know, I'm staying in this library and I'm like, this is gorgeous. And it was all paid for with tax dollars. And like all of our streets are clean. California has a massive homeless problem. We do not really see any in my town. I do not live in Los Angeles proper. I live in the county, but not in the city. And we pay extra taxes, you know, and it's just like, I can see where the tax dollars are going in my city.
Sure.
I can see it. Federally, you don't really see it as much, right? And it's just like you do, but you don't. And I think a lot of people, especially after, you know, I would say after the 2008 recession, started looking at different systems for their finances because they realized that their finances are not safe in a federal system.
Right.
And I believe that is why Bitcoin sprung up. I believe that's why it became popular. People wanted to see these assets get protected in this way that is just completely just off the radar.
Sure.
Do I agree with it? Kind of. Do I also think that, you know, no, yeah. But I also think the issue is like, until Americans specifically see their federal tax dollars go into a good use tangibly, where they're like, I can see where this is going, they're not going to believe in the system. Until they see everyone paying a similar amount of taxes, they're not going to be happy. They're just not, you know? And it's just like, I think there's a lot of cynicism going on right now, especially with like Gen Z. Oh my God. And they just hate government. They do not trust the government at all.
No.
They believe they're, you know, lesser of two evils, lizard people, like robots. Yeah. And I kind of understand why they feel that way. I mean, like they kind of grew up in this world of like, you know, they became like a sentient being around like the 2008 recession. And like they watched their parents stress out. Yeah. You know, and they grew up with the phone and they could just get all their information on the internet, and they realized like how much they hated everything. So it's like when I see these like Gen Zers who are just like really mad, I'm like, don't really agree with you, but like I see why you're upset. And I just think that like a decentralized system and like what we're talking about with like this freedom of expression. And I think the trucker example is interesting, right? Because I think that like a centralized system like that, where you pay into a system that's supposed to protect you, yet when you go against the system, and at least in the United States, like the Eighth Amendment, like you have the right to protest. Like,
Yeah.
you protest something you believe in and they freeze your assets. I mean, that doesn't really sound like something America would do, right? But like, it's just like, if that were to happen here, there'd be a huge uprising. Not because, you know, what people are doing is necessarily wrong. There are limits to protesting. But
Sure.
it's this interesting conversation of like, is decentralization a solution to that problem? I think it is. But a solution is not a fix-all. That's also the thing. A solution is just a solution. I think that you're always going to need centralized assets. But like, I believe that crypto is a way that we can fix the inflation in this country. I think it's a way we can fix the middle class in this country. Airdrops can make people like thousands of dollars like overnight. Like, that's like paying off student loans in a click of a button.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Hello.
Yeah. Like, to me, I'm sitting here like, this is the coolest thing that's happened literally since the internet. And like, that was really like the thing I found the most interesting when I first got here was I put on this analytical hat, right, that I have on right now. And I was just like, man, like, there is something really interesting about what we can do here. And even like in the 2022 election, like in the primary election this year, some like Bitcoin dude was like, I'm putting up $1 billion in funding. And I'm like, dude, if I had $1 billion, you know who would be out of office like immediately? Like, who's that lizard in Kentucky? Oh God, what is his name? Shit.
I don't know.
I have his face in my head, but he's a senator in Kentucky. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But it's just, oh my God, this is going to piss me off. Hold on, I have to look this up. Senator. He's like, oh my gosh, he's horrible. Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell. Yeah. If I had $1 billion, Mitch McConnell would not be in office. You know what I mean? Like, I would do so much to get that man out of office. And it's just like, it's those things that like, I think that crypto can help. It's just like, we can really, really change the world here if we put it towards the right things. The issue is that sounds very good, wrapped up in a little sentence on a podcast, but in practice, it doesn't happen because we're human. And I think that's the reason that like, you know, taxes don't work the way they should. It's just because we're fucking human. And like, if there's a will, there's a way. If there's a tax loophole, it's going to be taken, you know?
Right.
So
yeah, I agree with you.
That's the problem. Yeah. I'm more cynical than I am anything. I'm very centrist. According to the Pew, like aperture test of politics, I am what's called an outsider left, which is literally at the center but slightly left. My boyfriend took it. He is ambivalent right, which is slightly off to the right in the center. We're just both really cynical people, and I think that's the problem. That's why I got out of politics, because I was like, this is just so stupid. Like, nothing's changing.
Well, and something you mentioned, like the Gen Zers, they can just log online and see things that are happening in the world and they don't like it. And I remember when I was an angsty teenager, like, you know, I didn't have an outlet to like express myself publicly. I just went and skateboarded, you know, and like climbed a tree and like played in dirt, you know, like that's what I did. So it's like, it actually makes, like, you know, when you said that, I kind of like put two and two together. Like, every teenager is always angsty, right? Like your chains, it's weird. It's you don't know who you are. And your body, like, but then you add the layer of like, you have a microphone to the entire world. And that not only do you have a microphone to the entire world, you have literally the entire world at your fingertips, which I didn't have. And you probably didn't have. Like, so it's kind of, you know, kind of sort of like it was, I got it around 13 when I got Xbox Live, and, you know, that was a little bit different, but
and you heard all the obscenities that would get you very canceled today. Yes.
Oh, called like I say this a lot, like the Halo 2 pre-lobbies, the Call of Duty pre-game lobbies, like there's no way any Gen Z today would be able to handle that. Like, no. It was a very different breed. It was a very different time.
Yeah.
It was a very, very different time.
No,
yeah.
It was horrible.
Unbelievable.
No, I remember. And I think that like, I'm 27 and my parents are in their mid 60s. So they had me a little later than most of my friends. So I very much identify more with like an older millennial than I do with like a Gen Zer. Even though I'm like technically on the border of both. But because of that, I remember like being on Tumblr when the BP oil spill happened. And that was on Tumblr.
Oh, wow.
People were enraged. Like that seagull photo was there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And there was nothing we could do about it. And I hope,
Right.
my hope is that these kids who look at the decentralized internet and right now they just see monkey go up will eventually
Right.
see that like they can put their assets somewhere that the government can't really like mess with because they don't like the government. They're not like sitting here like, I love everything that the government does. They hate it. They fucking hate
That's
it.
right.
So it's just like,
Yeah.
give them a way to put their tangible assets in a place that's safe. Give them a way to express themselves in a way that's meaningful, where they don't need like all these systems. It's like, yo, if you want to work in politics, I hate to say it, you got to go to a very expensive private liberal arts college. You probably should have went to a prep school for high school. You need to be in like a good Greek life. You need to have good internships. You need to meet good people. You need to do a lot of really, really hard work for free or for cheap for a long time, and then maybe you'll work like in an office and they'll like you enough and they'll hire you for better things, or you'll grind your ass off. You'll completely neglect your mental, physical, emotional health, and you'll eventually become a consultant and make good money. But it's just like working in politics is very much a privileged game. And I don't think people see that. You know, I only got hired on my first campaign out of college because I went to the same fucking college as my candidate. I spent the same 250 grand that she did. That's why she hired me. And it's just like, wow, that's the game you play. And I hate it. And it's just like, if these kids can get into a DAO and they can start making like real change, like let's talk about like Unicorn DAO. Like they're literally out here like investing in marginalized communities, investing in art from marginalized communities, and they're spending a ton of money doing it. It's just like, let's talk about how we can do that with politics. Let's get like a fed up DAO together. Like all these like just angry Gen Zers who have crypto who are just like, we hate Mitch McConnell. Okay, great. Let's fucking get him out of office. You know, it's just like, there's a way to make this happen. But it just like really like, it's going to take a little time. And I think they're going to need to see that it's not just like monkey photos. But I'm like super bullish on like the decentralized internet. Like I love crypto art. I'm an artist. I really enjoy like selling my art and like people collecting it and gamifying it. And that's really fun to me. But like, I want to like, the thing that I love about this is that it combines all the things I like. I get to be analytical. I get to have these conversations. I get to make art. I get to be funny. I get to have a crypto dick butt and do whatever I want with it. Right. But I also like get to do all of those things. And that was the thing that really was hard for me as an artist, was like, I felt like, much like you were talking about Twitch, you were like, I felt like I had to put on this face. I felt like when I first got on to like, you know, Twitter, I was like, I need to be an artist. I only need to be an artist. But I only knew how to talk about analytical things because that's all I talked about with people. Got it. So I learned how to be both. Yeah. And I just said, I eventually just got comfortable with the fact that like people are going to like me or they're not going to like me. And like, there's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing I can do about that. You know what happened today? I had 10,000 followers on Twitter today. Today. That happened today.
Let's go.
Because I'm just being myself out here. I don't care. You're going to like me or you're not. I have the confidence that I just don't care anymore. And that's what the I think every new artist could really benefit from, is just knowing that like you can be all the things you want to be. If you're opinionated, if you've got thoughts about things, if you want to get involved in stuff that's like not great for your career as an artist. Like I hear these collectors talk about this shit. They're just like, this artist is like doing this thing in this like weird direction. Like how is that like contributing to them? And it's like, well, if they're not a good enough storyteller, it won't feel like it is. But if they are and they can combine their thoughts and their passions, like it'll come together in this cool way. And I just, I don't know.
To me, I think what I've learned the most since I've come here, and especially in interviewing like a lot of photographers as well, is that like, you know, like I think you and me have that common grounds. Like we really vibe with photographers. Like they have some of the coolest stories and some of the wildest things to go through. But like I think a lot of it, something that like I didn't realize till probably just even like a few months ago, is that like it is so important to understand the ability of storytelling here. Like it's not just an image. It's not, and some, you know, not to say that some, like, you know, I know Jake the DJ, and like he does, like his art, he doesn't provide a caption, he doesn't provide like he doesn't provide any story to it. It's just like it is what it is, and you derive what you're supposed to derive from it. But I really like the people that I see, like for the most part that succeed, is like the story that they tell through their image, whether there is a caption, whether there is like this or that. Like the ability to tell a story is probably the most important out of all the like the classy like lenses and like, you know, like aperture, all the shit that they talk about that I don't know anything about. Like that, that's like it's more important like how they convey that and how they like in what are they saying on Twitter? Does that line up with, or does that like at least follow somewhat the narrative that they're trying to tell?
Yeah.
That's been my favorite part. Like it is about the art, but it's also more about the storytelling, in my opinion. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but
it's
like
about the artist, which is the storytelling and the art to me is like, you know, the artist.
Yeah.
And I think
that's where they come together.
That's what's cool about this environment is like you're not just buying art because it's cool. It's like on Instagram, it's like you could find something on a hashtag or show up on your Explore page. You like it because it's cool. Maybe you buy a print because it's $30, whatever. Here, it's like you get behind the artist because their message is dope, you know, and you're like, wow, like you've really been through some stuff. Like I look at someone like, you know, I'm trying to think of like a good example that's like not super popular because I want to think about. I have a friend. Okay, let me use her for example. I have a friend. Her name is Little Menaji, and she is an urban explorer, and she is a very publicly Muslim woman, urban explorer, and like, it's just like, dude, like that story of just like dealing with people that not only are discriminated against her because she's a woman, but because she's a Muslim woman, and she's out here like. Ducking like security guards, like trying to get on these rooftops and like picking locks and stuff. It's like, yeah, you're gonna know that story, you know, and you're not just gonna collect that artwork because you think that like, you know, it's cool. It's like you're collecting that because it's like that's a piece of her, you know, and like to me, like that's really what this is about. I love that the art sells itself. I just don't think that that's necessarily true. I think that like, and not every piece of art needs to have this like crazy meaning behind it. But like, you should at least be able to explain, you know, like why you made it. I think that that's kind of important, you know, like even if the reason is like, I wanted to make something dope and this is what happened. It's like, all right, cool. You know, but it's just like,
be willing to explain it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think the storytelling is the thing that's different here for sure. You're onto something with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's because I'll tell you, like when I looked at art, I just looked at a picture and I think we've gotten so spoiled, kind of like with the version of the internet where we were just loaded with free art. Like it was like that was how artists like distribute, like Instagram, you know, like as much as like I hate Instagram and like they solved the problem of distribution. Like they were able to take distribution and and just like, you know, like magnify it at scale, you know, and that was like really, really valuable. But there was like and you'll probably know this better than me, but there was a certain part in that story where it's just like, okay, likes and follows don't pay rent. You know, like they don't pay for the food on my table, and they don't do anything like that. So stop saying, and musicians know this probably better than most as well, is that like, you know, like just because my music is distributed and I make a fraction of a penny per stream, like the exposure is more important. It's like, I mean, I don't really buy that, you know. I don't buy that at all. So I don't really know where I was going with that, but like I think storytelling, right? Like I didn't realize like people had told me in the past how important it was, but like it's almost like what made sense to like it's like people that have a journey, they tell their journey. That's like people like investing in people, and people like being a part of something from the ground up. Like when you find that artist that you found when they had like 100 subscribers on YouTube, or like, you know, barely any streams, and like you were with them that entire journey, that shit is so cool. Like people invest in people, like, and then the art is like a bonus, you know what I mean? Like the art is like, that's just what I like, especially when it comes, like, I don't know, that's speaking more of a musical lens and speaking, you know, but to me, it's like, I'm a people person. I've always known people. I've always loved people. And like, I can find common ground with a fucking pebble, you know, like I got that from my father. And that to me, people are the most interesting things. And in a world where people like are like, and we live in this super polarized day and age where it's just like, you have to like pick a side and stand there. And if you do this, you're labeled this. And it's like, when you find the people that are like just telling dope stories and like going against like the current meta, that's the shit that excites me. And like, even when I was before, I'm going on a monologue, but like even before I got sober, like I never liked big parties or big gatherings. I like, the only time I like big gatherings is like if I go to a Tool concert. Like Tool's like my favorite band of all time. Like I'm like the only
Yes.
I'm like, that's like the only thing that you can argue, and I will not apply any logic to it. Like that's like the one thing that I will argue illogically, because it's just it is they have made that much of a difference in my life. But I never went to big parties because I couldn't have a genuine connection with people at a big party. Like, and by the time, as time went on, after about the third to fourth drink, you're not talking to the person, you're talking to a shadow, and you're not like, there's no value being, now granted, I didn't have a whole lot to talk about, but I just like talking to people, and whether it was about nothing or like what I was going to do or what they were doing, like people are so fucking interesting. Like when you actually sit down and get to know somebody, and that's the way I've always been. And so this whole thing with like learning about artists, like podcasting made so much sense for me. Live streaming didn't, because I was in front of a live audience, and I'm having to talk to a bunch of people all at once. With podcasting, like it's super intimate, it's super personal, like, and it feels like you're just chit chatting with someone, and you get to like unlock like things that make them like that make them tick, and that when you unlock those things, that unlocks value everywhere else. And so it's just it's insane to like be able to like, as someone who documented stories, like I just had the epiphany that storytelling is really important.
Yeah.
And now it's fucking on chain. Like that story is on chain. I think like I actually wrote a thread where it's just like, there is such a difference between saving an image on your computer and minting something that is permanent.
Yeah.
Like it cannot be erased, deleted. There is something completely different just in the feeling. And I think that part of like my mission here is just like, I want to get people to like left click own something one time, even if it's like a free NFT, even if it's like a one Tez piece of art, which there's a lot of great work for one Tez, but like that's like one of the goals, because it's such a different feeling having ownership of something that we historically have never been able to own.
Yeah.
I don't know, like that just like, holy shit, like, because I got onboarded through that Beeple sale, and I'm like, how did a picture sell for $69 million? Like how did that happen? So anyway, the storytelling of this space is just absolutely insane, and I think we're just like in a really special spot right now.
We are, and I also think that like, in addition to like the storytelling, the things that you can do on chain are so different from before. Because I mean, like, if you don't know, Callaway is a OG Instagram long form captioner who turned into this like very eccentric blogger who just did all these things. She was crazy and she was awesome and insane and just like a train wreck you couldn't look away from. But she was really good at storytelling, and that's great. But it was just like Instagram captions in 2013. So that's all it really was, and I think that like,
yep.
I look at, this now, and even if you knew how to storytell, you have to meet people and do things differently. Because I think on Instagram, especially, it's very much like post and go. Where I feel like on Twitter, it's a lot more of like engaging with people and actually having like conversations and having meaningful conversations with people. And I think that that's a different, it's storytelling. It's just a different element of it now too, And I really admire that, it's like, and I also think that it's hard. And I'll just be candid. It's like a lot of the things I've said, I had to say in the Twitter space earlier today. And I'm learning that that's okay. I'm learning that repeating myself over and over again is not me being annoying, because the only person hearing it twice is me, Right. And like, it's okay to say the same things, and it's okay to kind of like, have a different, have like the same things you're going to say over and over, and maybe like talk about slightly different things, but like having similar stories, like that's fine.
Sure.
And that's okay. If you were to go around and watch like a stand-up comedian, like go on tour, you're going to hear the same jokes,
Right.
And I think that that's something that like is hard with storytelling, is just like, you're allowed to say the same thing over and over again.
Gary V, actually, I learned that from him. I was a huge Gary V stan before I like got into the space, and like still am. Like I know people love it. Like people hate him, people love him. Like that dude is like that is probably the only like thing I can say. Like, you know what? I am confident if you invested 20 grand in Gary V that you would see a return. Like that is the one man. Like I am just like, he is so fucking bullish on himself, and like has always proven that. But in his content, he was like, sometimes you have to say things 967 times for someone to finally get it. Like for someone to just finally get it. And that stuck with me for a long time because he got shit way before NFTs about repeating the same content. It was just regurgitated. This and that. He's like, because people they don't have a way to apply it in their life until they do.
Yeah.
And if I get to, if there's one moment that I missed from saying that like that would have changed that person's life when they were finally willing to open their ears to hear it. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's really what it's about. Anyway, keep going. Like that. It's just like,
No,
I've done it on
right.
podcasts too.
No, that's it though. That's the truth. It's like, you just have to keep repeating yourself over and over again. And you kind of like have to be okay with the fact that like, it might take 5 or 6 tweets of the same kind of concept for people to actually get it. And it's not like you're sitting there like, okay, like, check mark, like, let me tweet again. But it's just like, if it comes to mind, do it again. Like, who cares? You know, you're allowed to repeat yourself. You're allowed to tell the same story twice. And I think that like in this space too, it's like the gamification that you can do is really cool. Right? It's just like all of my editions are like mint passes for collections, you know, and it's just like all of my one of ones, they get canvases, you know, like, and it's just like eventually all of the holders will like only be the only people allowed to do certain drops, you know, the only people that are allowed to contribute to it. And it's just like, to me, that's really cool because it's like, I couldn't really do that before. It's like, I could kind of parse out things on Shopify and like, yeah, maybe a little bit, you know, but it's hard. And I think that like this makes it really easy and it's really fun. So it's just like, that's a different way to tell your story of like, thank you for supporting me. Essentially, when you do that, it's like, thank you for supporting me. Like, here's a way for like you to support yourself now. And that's what I like about editions. Right. It's just like, they're cool because it's like you buy them for super cheap and then you can flip them and actually make money. And it's like, you're supporting art that you like in addition to being able to, you know, then support yourself. To me, that's really cool because then everyone wins. To me, that's what Wagner really means. It's not, you know, we're all going to have a Lamborghini.
Yes.
It means like we're all going to be able to like be okay.
Right. To me, it's the alignment of incentive models. Like, it's like, because in Web 2, it's like the incentive model is one way. Like, not to say that there's not great content creators and great YouTubers and great Twitch streamers and great that provide immense level of value, entertainment, laughter, you know, rage, whatever the case may be. Like, but the person doing, like, consuming that, all they get to do is consume that, and they get to like tell that other person's story, and they don't actually like. This allows monetization on both sides.
Yeah.
Like, and if you want to hold it, fucking rock on. But like, you have the ability for that to be a life-changing piece of art that, and not only is it life-changing for you, but if the artist continues to do what they do, it's naturally going to go up in value. Like, they get to see that too.
Yeah.
Like, you're incentivized to sell, and it's not a bad thing to sell because finally we have incentive models that actually align. And I tell people, it's like a lot of great artists saw nothing of their sales in the past because they were like, typically because they were dead, right? Mm-hmm. And like, they never saw a lot of these, like, you know, like all the millions of dollars that got you know, transacted over work that they did, and they never saw a cent of it. And I was like, as when I onboard people, I'm like, if you cannot get behind that, like that, it's like, if you can't get behind anything else, fucking get behind that. You know what I mean? That like, artists don't have to be dead to make money now.
Yeah, they don't.
Right.
And I think that like the other thing is just like, it's not always going to be like the artist that went from like, oh, like I sold one thing to like now whatever, you know, it's like, you can also have people like different levels of the playing field because it's helpful, you know? And I think that like, I learn a lot from the people that have been doing this a lot longer than me. And I learn a lot from the people that are like blowing up for the first time. Like, I look at that and I'm like, I used to be like, damn, like I wish that was me. And now I'm like, take your fucking bag. This is the first one you're going to get. And it's awesome. And it's a great feeling. Everyone loves you.
Right.
Like, revel in that. It's awesome. It will go away. And like, I think the bigger lesson is that, but like this period right now is important. So take it. And I see it and I'm happy for them, you know, and it's awesome and it's great. And it's just like, you know, I think that the thing that this space ultimately has given me is just like the willingness to interface with so many artists. Because I didn't do that before. It was on Instagram again. It was just like post and leave. It's just like, you don't have to engage with people. And it's a very like platformed like engagement, right? It's just like, I'm talking to you from up here and you're down here. Where now it's like, I'm not speaking from a podium. We're speaking around the table. And I like that. I like that a lot better. Mm-hmm. I feel more connected to people when they're actually willing. And it's also like even the same types of people, right? It's just like, even like when fans will find me on Twitter, it's just like a different interaction than like on Instagram, you know, because they're just like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, I'm doing great. How are you? You know, and it's just like very candid. Or I feel like on Instagram, they're like, oh, I don't want to take up too much of your time. And I'm just like, I literally sit here all day and do nothing. Please, like, keep DMing me. Like, I don't care.
Please take my time.
Like, take my time. I don't care. And if I don't respond, it's like, because I'm busy, you know? And it's just like, but it's just like this weird logic. And I just like, I like the fact that everything feels a little bit more candid now. And we are seeing artists. I didn't even think about that. I'm thinking about those like Van Gogh, like immersive experiences. And I'm like, damn, this man thought he was like some loser and made no money. And like, if he could see the world now and how much of an influence he had, not just on like impressionist art, but like on the world, you know, it's just like, wow. Like, it's a good point. For sure.
If you would have gotten to see that, imagine what the world would have looked like, you know? So it's that's the thing. And talking about repeating things and repeat thing, I can't remember which episode I mentioned this on. I think it was 2 or 3 episodes. Like, you know, I work in corporate, you know, this is like, I have a day job and like, I do my thing. And it's like, you know, part of the narrative in corporate America is like, work-life balance. And like, we need to have all these like benefits and we need to have like, you know, like we need to like, again, like just, and it's not wrong. Like it's not wrong. But what's interesting is that before I came here is that there's this weird paradigm. There's this weird like belief from everyone but artists that like artists don't deserve that same treatment. Like if somehow you pay artists for what they're worth, then they're just going to take the money and run. You know what I mean? And it's like, how about they're actually going to like create better shit? Like, what about that?
How about the CEOs that take 500 times less money or more money than their lowest level employee that can't fathom not flying on a private jet? It's just like, how are they not taking the money and running away? Like, it's the same thing. At least the artist is contributing, not just signing papers. And sending emails that like don't mean anything, you know. It's just like, what is this? What is really like the EVP of Citibank doing? What are they really doing? You know, like, but what are they really taking? A lot, you know. So it's just like, I think I do think about that a lot with the art market, especially in crypto art. It's just like how much of this money is actually getting like infiltrated back into the ecosystem, and it's probably not a lot. You know, it's like if someone makes a 10 ETH sale and they put in, you know, 1 ETH, there's 9 going out. Even if there's 1 coming back in, there's 90% leaving. And it's just like, I think about that. And I think about how I don't love it, you know, but also like eventually what's going to happen is that artist with that 9 ETH is going to do something with it. Whether it's, and I don't think that every artist should be like, oh, okay, I made a sale. Now I'm going to buy a new computer. Now I'm going to do this. It's like, no, if you made a sale, and you can put that money towards paying your bills to keep your lights on, to keep you making art, you are contributing to your career. I don't think that everyone needs to be, I mean, I love her to death, but she's an extreme case. Not everyone needs to be Kath Samar going down to Patagonia for 3 months. You know, like you can just like go shoot, you know, and she does what she does because it's what she's passionate about and she's very like good at it, right? But like not everyone has to do that. And like, not everyone has to take those risks and do those things. And that's okay. You know, like if putting food on the table is what's going to keep you making art from your sales, you're still contributing to the system. You know, you're just doing it in a slightly different way. It's obviously like a slower return than like PFPs. But like, I do think that artists like contribute. Like I do. I just think that it's a little different. And ideally you'd like to see like the growth, you know, kind of keep going. But I think that what I would love in the world of crypto art is for people to kind of like leave their PFP expectations at the door, of kind of like, you know, oh, like I'm going to see a return on this immediately. And it's like, no.
Or what's the utility? You know what I mean? Like
more art. Yeah. What do you mean? More art.
That's right.
You get airdrops of art. That's it.
And even if you don't, you bought art.
It's art.
You know what I mean?
Art's the utility of art. Yeah. No, really.
Right. You know, now I'm glad you brought that up because like it's really interesting. I feel like PFPs are a very important part of the ecosystem because it's like this identity layer of the internet. Like it's like a super fun way to express ourselves. But I think that people a lot of people are still don't. I'm a big proponent. Like I'm a big I really love to vocalize like this. What's the word I'm looking for? It's a brain fart. But this mentality of and versus or, right? It's just like in Web 2, it's been or. It's been this or that or that or that. And it's like, no. We have PFPs. We have glitch art. We have collage art. We have photography. We have, and they all, the reality is they all need to be approached differently. And like, God, God bless, like, because like I do it too. It's hard to like not want to find a one size fits all mindset for everything.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's the easy thing to do, and I do it all the time. But it's not that rewarding to do. It actually takes up more energy to try to find a one size fits all, because square pegs don't go in round holes. And it's like, and it just doesn't fucking work.
No.
And I think that we're in that shift right now to literally what you said. I hear you loud and clear about like people are coming from this PFP market. They made an insane amount of money. They want to invest in art, but it's like they're carrying that same mentality over here.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work like that. And I think people need to understand how to think dynamically, and people need to think like people understand how to think differently. And we all do it from time to time. And, I'm guilty of it myself, of trying to find like a one model that's just going to make my life easier, that I'm just going to be able to like fucking kick it, and like have everything, work on the side. I think it's every human's like fantasy to have that happen.
Yeah.
But life's not really that fun if you do it that way.
No,
like,
it's not. It's not. If you've ever played The Sims and you've just motherloaded your Sims and then they have a job, but they don't have to worry about anything, it's not impossible to have fun, but it's also like, it makes it kind of boring. And I think
if you use Rosebud all the time, little
like,
Rosebud,
it's just, you can't do that, And I think that like part of what I think about with like PFPs is like, they do bring a lot of liquidity to the market, and I think that's incredible. And I never even thought about that. Like, they are really like the identity of the space. Like, they give people the sense of identity. But it's I believe that like they give people a sense of identity, period, end of sentence. What these like companies do after that, all this utility, is all marketing for them to keep people invested in their identity. It has nothing to do with the identity. It has everything to do with people feeling like they've made a good decision over and over and over again. That's all that it is. It's just all marketing. It's all marketing. And I think that like, with art, I think the way that I look at redeemables or utility is more like a thank you and a gratitude, and less of like, I need you to stay invested in me. There's like a lot less of that, I think, for artists, which is cool. But one thing that I think is interesting just about like PFPs in general is just like they've brought such an interesting identity to the space that I don't think people are necessarily proud of. Like, I would argue that like Bored Ape Yacht Club was the biggest wave of people getting interested in NFTs, and also the worst thing that could have brought people to NFTs. Not that they're bad or whatever. It's just that like, that's just such a poor representation of what like the ecosystem is. It's just like, it's interesting, sure. It's well funded, yes. It's backed by Guy Oseary, which is Madonna's manager. So very like Hollywood executive power, which is interesting. But most projects are not that, and they're not going to be that.
Right.
And I don't think that anyone should like fade Bored Apes just because of that. Like, it's great what they're doing. But we can't sit here and get these like day traders to get interested finding the next Bored Ape Yacht Club, because it's not going to happen. There is not going to be another Bored Ape Yacht Club. Like, it's just not going to happen. Goblins will probably soar, but it won't be like that.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too much into DJ.
Well, they're two completely different ways though. Like, if you want to bring it back, like we can dip our toes a little bit in that, but it's like, if you really look at what Bored Apes did, if you look outside of like the narrative that's currently here, they did something completely different. What they like, there's a lot of things they did differently. And so now they minted kind of right around when I was learning, like, and I didn't really fully know what mint prices typically were. I didn't know anything. I was still just like learning what the fuck like Bitcoin was, and but one thing revolutionary that they did was, not revolutionary, but one thing really different that they did was they had a lower mint price of 0.08 ETH, which apparently was like really cheap compared to previous
cheap.
mints.
Yeah.
That's really cheap. That's number one thing that they did. They gave utility by allowing people to sign into the internet with their wallet and go to the yacht club and draw in the bathroom if you held a Bored Ape. You could like log into a Web3 website and something super simple, fucking drawing something in a bathroom that you had to have token gated access to do. That was not something that had been done before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that type of, even though it sounds super silly and like, but anything that we do is super simple. Like basketball, people pay millions of dollars to watch a bunch of guys run around on a hardwood floor and shoot a ball in a hoop.
Yeah.
Same thing with football. Like everything is super simple when you really like analyze it, but it was something different that this space hadn't done before. And then you include commercial rights, which hadn't been done before.
That
and now,
was
you mentioned like that was the thing, but to me, the other stuff gets overshadowed because CryptoPunks obviously are historic in nature. Like just there's so much culture surrounding CryptoPunks. We don't even need to get into that, but it's like they like Bored Apes took that and evolved from it.
Yep.
Like they took that narrative and they evolved from it. And that's just like that's like three things. The commercial rights was I think the biggest thing, but it was three things. They did something different. They literally invented the whole like airdropping serums and mutants and dogs and like then everyone else just did a bunch of pasta. It's like they're like leading the charge. They're doing things that are actually different. Yep. And that's to drive back all the points that we've been talking about and going back to the very beginning is that like this is an open canvas and people get rewarded for doing something different.
Yeah.
Like you may not be number one like Bored Apes are going to be because like whether you like them or not, like I think they're too big to fail and they just print money. It's just like
no,
that's
but
just like
that's
what they
the
do
thing
is
is
print
like
money.
these people come in now and they're like, I want to find the next Bored Ape, but it's like you're not going to find it. That's the problem.
You're not.
Yeah, Bored Apes, in their own right, instrumental, innovative, incredibly revolutionary. Yeah. But now you're just not going to find that. So it's like I think that the ramifications of Bored Apes was like just horrible because everyone was like, I'm going to find the next Bored Ape.com. It's like, no, you're not. It's not going to be like the funky, I don't know, like tuna fish. It's just not. Like, I'm sorry.
Insert every animal like every animal to ever exist.
Yeah, like it's just not going to happen. The only people that get rich off of that are the people who founded it because it's a rug pull.
Yeah.
That's it. And
all the ones that come after it. Yeah, for sure.
They buy people's fear. They buy people's FOMO, and then they run away. And that sucks. But whatever. I don't know. I think that like a policy I like to live by is if there is not a seat for you at the table, make your own table. And that's something I've really tried to do. Mm-hmm. So I find that to be just fascinating.
It's honestly one of the greatest pieces of advice. I love that because like that's kind of what started my whole creative journey is like even though I work in corporate, like it's probably not the end all be all. And so it's like I'm just like, you know what? Let me go like make my own table. Let me go do my own thing. Let me like the advice I give people just to piggyback off what you said is that like when they ask me how I found this and why I do what I do and what was the motivation, I'm just like, or how did you figure out what it is you want to do? I'm like, if you would have told me 3.5 years ago that I'd be talking about like Monopoly money and monkeys, like, and talking to artists and like, I would have told you were insane. I would have not believed you. Because like, I told you before, I didn't give two shits about crypto before I came here. Like if you would have told me I was going to have a podcast with the underlying asset being in cryptocurrency, I would have told you were out of your mind.
Yeah. But life changes.
But I
that's
tell
the fun thing.
Yeah, it does. And I tell people, find the thing that makes you so happy that everyone's going to judge you for. And then you double down on that.
I like that. And that's also the fun thing is just like there's so much out there that's like that, and I think that like anyone can find it, especially here. Yeah, and it's hard and it's weird, and I think that like carving out that table can be really like you can get judged for it and it can be uncomfortable. Yeah. But like I think like you said, it's like people are getting rewarded here for doing something different. So just do something different. That's all that it takes. Right. It's just doing something differently.
It's lonely, it's strange, it's weird, but like what's really fascinating is that we all have a community of a bunch of people doing really fun, strange, weird shit too. Like the people, the community that like kind of came with me, some of my closest online friends that came with me from the Twitch days, like they're all doing their own things in different ecosystems, but we all converge in the same place, and we're all building something for ourselves. We all have different goals, we all have different talents, we all have different like things we want to achieve and like things we want to do, you know. But there's this like common thread, and that's, to me, going back to like what you're talking about, like the whole WAGME thing is like this, like we can all make it based on our own interest, doing our own thing, like building our own life. And we don't have, it's not that I want to eliminate like brand deals and corporate deals and this and that. It's just like, we don't need that to be the only option.
Right.
Like,
and I think that,
you know,
to me, is Web3, is it's this power of choice. And I think that is the thing that a lot of people gloss over. It's like, people are like, what's the utility? What's the, like, is it CCO? It's like, no, the choice is that we can make it that, or we cannot make it that. And the only thing that really kind of makes those things important is like what people want it to be. It's like the sentiment, right? But if like we educate people to say, there's a choice that can be made here, and no one is wrong in their decision making, it'll be what it needs to be. I fear that what's going to happen in the space is people are going to be like, it's a choice, but nothing will sell unless it's CCO. And we're not there now, and I hope we don't ever get there.
Yeah.
But it's just like, you know, I mean, that's how it is. It's like, oh, you have a choice. No, you don't. You have like a perceived choice. You have an implied forced action. And like the pressure, I just hope that doesn't happen. And I don't think it will. But I do worry about, you know, just like, I worry about like the lack of choices eventually coming in. But one thing I really try to do in my life is just not sit in like the future or the past. I just want to sit in the present. So I try not to really like delve too far into that. The one thing is just like, you know, just getting yourself out there is just so hard, but it's so important. And I think that it just takes a lot of courage, but yeah, do weird stuff on the blank canvas and you'll be okay.
Yeah. This is a place for weird people. Like, like everyone here, if anyone here is judging anyone for being weird, it's a mirror of everyone, you know. And that, to me, it's like you were talking about earlier, like you never really felt like you fit into certain crowds. It's like, I think that's like what really excited me about here, is that like outside of the recovery community and the sober community, like I relate, you know, to everyone in that community, because that's a very special bond that not many people have who have gotten to make it through that. But this is like the second half of that. This is like the other side of the coin, where it's like, okay, that on a very, very personal, intimate, fundamental level, like that's like my true community, you know, and that it will always be that. But this is like the community of every single like thing that was built on top of my foundation.
Yes.
You know, this is like the community of me, of who I am, not this ailment, not this thing that I have, but off of every other thing that makes up me.
It's like, you know, my principles are there, my interests are here. And I think that is like,
I fucking love that.
It's important though, because like I forget that sometimes, and I'll like talk to people, and then I realize like, oh my god, we don't share the same principles, and I'm like, that's okay though. Like I'm allowed, because I lived so much of my life just talking to people that have the same principles as me, and it's just like when I realized like life isn't always going to be like that, I was like, oh okay, you know, and that really helped, you know.
It does.
It
helps to get outside the bubble a little bit, right? Well, Natasha, look, this has been fun. I want to start wrapping it up here. Yeah, we talked about a lot of shit, and I told you I came here with no plan, and it's probably pretty evident that I came here with, you know, it's a lot fun to just wing it, you know.
Well, I don't really get to talk about conversations like this when people come in with a plan, because they're like, why do you like the moon so much? I'm like, because it's dope. You know, you're like, what do you like about decentralization? I'm like, let's fucking go. You know, it's just like, I don't get to talk about these things because people, maybe I'm not good enough at storytelling it, but I think people like lack the perspective that like, I'm not just an artist, you know? So I like having conversations where I get to like kind of be like me a little bit, you know? Like,
and super nerd out. Yeah. That's the whole plan. So now that you've mentioned why you like the moons, where do you want people to go to find the moons? Where do you want people to go find your work? Like where is it that you want people to go?
Well, Postwook is pretty much everywhere. Twitter, Instagram. You
It's-
can find me on Facebook, TikTok, whatever you want. I spend most of my time on Twitter. So Postwook on Twitter is definitely like the best place to find me. Probably in the Twitter space with my friends. That's usually where I'm at. But
yeah.
I definitely spend a lot of time, on the internet. And then my one of ones are on Super Rare. I'm minting editions. Well, they're on my own contract, but they're all populating on OpenSea, so you can find me on OpenSea. Fun stuff. Yeah, I think like just anywhere you type in Postwook, you'll find me, which is like really cool.
Sick.
Yeah.
And you're trademarked, right? Like,
I am
it's
trademarked.
pretty. That's
Yes.
love it. Well, hang out just real quick. So this thing finishes uploading, but it has been a treat. This has been awesome. I can't wait for people
we
to hear
definitely
this.
need to like keep in touch because you're like more than just like you have all the things here. So I'm really stoked about that.
I love making these connections with internet friends that you would have ever gotten to, like, I would have never gotten to do this without it. So
yeah,
thank you so much.
And you're going to be in New York, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh
cool.
yeah. Oh yeah. I'll be there.
We'll connect there.
Big hug.
Awesome.
Big hug.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, please. Okay.